Hello, everyone. My name is Jack Farmer, and as always, I'm joined by George Hermosa. We're here with the Wrestling Chatter, and we just got done having a phenomenal interview with none other than Vampiro and director Michael Paszt of the great documentary Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. George, this was a really fun interview.
It was a fun interview, too, and I do want to talk a little bit about the documentary as well, because we each had a chance to watch it. And I know we were both big Vampiro fans, you being in WCW. And it's funny, like, I was obviously, anybody who follows the channel knows, born and raised in Los Angeles, XPW was a big deal. And I remember in maybe 2001, they announced that Vampiro was going to be on the next XPW event. So I remember being with my friends. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to paint our faces. I'm going to paint my face as Vampiro. You guys can paint your face as ICP. We never actually did. But it was still pretty cool. Like, that's how much I was a fan. Like, I was like, I am not missing the next XPW event because more Vampiro, but Vampiro and ICP were going to be at the next show. So yeah, I was excited when I saw that they were going to have a documentary. Obviously, I would have loved the opportunity to watch it to begin with, but now having the opportunity to talk to him, it really was pretty cool.
Yeah, when he first debuted on WCW, I remember thinking to myself, he's like a younger, cooler Sting. And I like Sting, but he's like a younger, cooler Sting. I thought he was cool in Wrestling Society X. And of course, I'm one of the world's biggest Lucha Underground fans. So, but this interview wasn't about those things. It was about this documentary that really chronicled his life and his, whether it be from injuries, whether it be through career changes, and of course, his life with his daughter and trying to make things work like that. As you mentioned, great documentary that you can find all over like Amazon, easy to download for anyone listening.
It really, really was fun. And it went by so smooth, too. Like, some of these documentaries, they're all pretty good to some extent, but some of them kind of have, like, a down period or they just kind of drag. This one, like, before you know it, it was already over. Like, I just couldn't believe just how quick it went because it was also fascinated. It covered a little bit of AAA. Like, I love seeing whether it's WWE or AEW or, in this case, AAA. Like, I love that backstage. And if anybody loves that kind of behind the scenes backstage, man, this documentary gets all up in there on Triple Mania 25. Like, I was surprised. I was even surprised at some of the footage that made it to the documentary. I'm like, you would think that maybe like 10 years ago, like, there's no way at all some of this stuff would have made a documentary, let alone like regular TV or movies. Like, it would just, to me, I was baffled at how much behind the scenes stuff there was in this documentary.
Yeah, I've thought to myself as soon as I watched it, even though I've been a fan of his since the late 90s, like a lot of American wrestling fans have been, even if you've watched all of his stuff, you don't know Vampiro's story until you've seen this documentary. So I strongly urge people, check it out, but also check out this interview we had with him, because I was so happy with how open they were, not just about what happened in the documentary, but what's going on in their lives and what they're doing and going through together. I thought it was a fantastic interview.
You're not going to mention this at all because you're humble, but find out what question Vampiro thought was the best question that he's ever heard.
Yes, yeah, and I was blushing after he said that. I felt like I needed face paint, but yeah, I think we should get the interview started. I think we should let everyone see it. You can check it out. It comes up right now. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jack Farmer, and this is the Wrestling Chatter. As always, I'm joined by George Hermosa, the boss of the Wrestling Chatter, but you're not here to listen to me talk or to listen to George talk. You're here to hear from two guys who put together an amazing documentary. We've got Michael Paszt and Ian Hodgkinson here talking about Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro, which was a great documentary available on Amazon, Apple TV, Vudu, and Fandango. Thank you guys so much for being on. I know you guys are busy. You got a ton of stuff coming up, so I just want to dive into the questions if that's okay. Michael, this first one's for you. Now, you were a fan of wrestling, and I know it's easy to look at this documentary and see how great it is, and in hindsight say, of course, Vampiro was the perfect person to follow for something like this. But before all this started, with all the colorful characters in wrestling, what made him stand out to you as the person you should be following for a documentary like this?
I think it's a great question. I think the thing is just you look to vibe with someone, right? You know, there's so many people. I mean, life's too short, and I get tired of, you know, people with bad egos and things like that. And just with Ian, I've known him on and off for years, and there was always for me there was always a connection and a lot of similarities and interests in all that. And really, at the end of the day, for me, it was just sort of like his other story, his other side. Like, everybody knows him on the internet for, you know, all this sort of the trolls and all this sort of stuff. But there's this whole other side that nobody ever talks about. And I thought that was, for me, was the core, was him and Dasha and he's just like everybody else, just trying to make ends meet and just provide and like for your family. And when we reconnected, we bumped into each other at the airport, and he's telling me, he's like, oh, I'm flying from Thunder Bay, Ontario to Mexico City and Los Angeles, and I got to be back Sunday every single week. I got to be back Sunday night to make lunch for my daughter for school in the morning. I'm like, oh my God, that's a story. And everything else for me was just would fall into place after that. But it was him and what he was doing with his daughter.
This question's for Ian. You mentioned in the documentary that you wanted to become an icon in pro wrestling. Do you think you became one? I know your peers think so. A lot of the fans think so. But what do you think? Do you think that you've been able to fulfill that earlier prophecy that you said for yourself of becoming an icon in pro wrestling?
I don't know. I don't think so. Because where I am now at life and what I'm about to start doing, I realize that what I did in the ring was preparing me for what I'm about to do. So whatever Vampiro did or went through is nothing compared to what Vampiro is needed for now. So I look at it like, fuck, that beating was just to get me ready for the next one. So I think that moment of making Vampiro an icon is yet to come.
Speaking of what's yet to come and all the things you're working on, one of the big stories throughout the documentary is just how overloaded with work you seem and how much you're constantly doing, even going to like Lucha Underground. You start as a commentator, but then it goes to being an agent and then being an on-camera wrestler again. Vampiro, with all due respect, why can't you just do your job? Why do you always seem to want to do more and add more onto the load and create more and do more stuff? Is it something that maybe you learned from a parent or an authority figure growing up? Is it something that you just kind of picked up on your own? What brings you wanting to bring more onto the plate all the time?
Because it's not a job, dude. It's a lifestyle. It's my heart and soul. It's my DNA. It's what I breathe. This is not a job. This is who I am.
It kind of does feel like a little addicting at times, but do you ever just kind of get a chance to just sit back and just say like, man, like, I know you mentioned the next part of your life, but everything you've accomplished so far, so many wrestlers, you know, up and coming, or even guys that have retired, they wish they had the career that you had. Do you ever kind of sit back and say like, man, like, I've done a lot of cool things in my career?
No. I mean, there's too much to learn. There's too much to experience. I'm learning how to communicate with angels. I'm learning ancient religions. I'm studying the history of the human race. I'm learning new musical instruments. I'm recording music. I'm playing in a band. I'm doing other things with my life. I'm learning another language. I'm reading books. I'm studying in university. It's all that stuff that I did is just like stuff you did. It's in the past. I can't get anything from it today that's impactful to help somebody else grow as a human being. So what's better and more impactful is to focus on what I'm doing now. The stuff I did before, in my point of view, it was awesome then, but I never think about it. Never, ever think about it, ever. That was a fight Michael had. You don't remember this, you don't have that, you didn't keep it. I don't have any of my belts, I don't have any of the videos. Ask Michael. I don't have any of the photos, I don't have any of the ring gear. I gave it all away. I just don't, it's done.
Yeah, I mean, that was in the doc. It was like, go to his place, and we're there, and like, okay, usually these guys have like a little, what's the word for it?
They got 12 dicks, so they keep all that shit.
So they have everything pictures, everything like that. And I go on, and he's got nothing, like nothing there. The only stuff that we had was what his daughter had, a photo album and pictures and things like that. But we went down the rabbit hole, like digging for archival footage, and we found all that stuff afterwards.
Something I really like that you guys have just talked about, Vampiro, is what's next, what's happening, the next step of the journey. And throughout this documentary, a constant that seemed to be happening is you're constantly transitioning from one thing to the next. And I'll let people watch the documentary to see all the different things. But for an example, you start, or at one point in your life, you're in front of the camera performer, a wrestler, and then you are a director behind the camera. Do you have any advice or feedback or thoughts, or what's it like when you're finishing one part of your life's journey that you're really good at and transitioning into the next, like going from being in front of the camera performer, which you were great at, to being a director? And how do you come to grips with that yourself and moving on and embracing something new?
That's probably the greatest question I've ever been asked in my whole career.
Oh, thank you. I'm humbled.
I don't even want to answer it. It was just so awesome. That's another. Holy wow. I don't really think there's a right or wrong answer. I believe that if you have the curiosity and the desire to answer that question of what's that's made me look over there, or why am I what's drawing me to that, you've got to go do it so that you can answer that question yourself. I believe if you're going to go down a new path and you're going to follow a new dream or a desire, or you're curious enough about something that you want to commit to it for the amount of time needed to fulfill whatever it is, you have to ask as many questions as possible to everybody. You can't rely on a textbook, or you can't go to school for it, because you're not going to be taught what you're looking for. You need to speak to the people who have their hands in the fire now, because you need to get burnt, or you're not going to have your answers. The stove is hot. Don't touch it. Why not? Because it's hot. Well, how hot is it? Oh, okay. Now you know. You've got to go and do it. So go and ask all the questions, and then don't listen to any of that advice. Go the other way. Because if you follow somebody else's footsteps, you're still not getting the answer that you need. You need to go fail. You need to fail as many times as humanly possible. If you have a success, step back and make sure you fail, because you need that scar tissue and that experience to know that you're never going to get it right in everybody's eyes. You need that thick skin. You need to follow your dream, but you've got to get dirty. That's when you're dirty and you're fucked up and it leaves you damaged, then you know you have your answer.
Wow. This question is for Michael. Obviously, from a filmmaking director standpoint, and he even mentioned it in the trailer, there was a lot of parallels with the movie The Wrestler. Is that something, and obviously The Wrestler being 100% fictional, and obviously this is real life, is that something that you embrace, or are you very like, whoa, that was fiction, that was a movie, this is reality?
Well, I think, no, it's again...
No, that's not fiction, motherfucker. That's the way it is.
That's the thing. The thing about the movie is that's why the movie's so brilliant, is because that is every single wrestler's story.
Yeah.
And I think that's, of course, there's going to be elements of Ian's process and all of his career, right? Of course. There's even a connection with him I think you have a connection with Mickey Rourke back at the was it the Viper Room or whatever club it was?
Another one.
Back in the day, right? But anyways, I think that they all have that story, but I think for ours is that while it has a dark ending, it's still uplifting, and the whole thing is the rise. And I think what's more important is Ian was at a point when I first met him, he was like over 300 pounds. Really, it was not in a good place. And by the time we finished making this film, he was a different person. At the very end too, what's awesome, even though he's got diagnosed with Alzheimer's, he's back at it and he's fighting. So the metaphor is that he's fighting. Like, he doesn't care. He's not going to stop. And this is not going to stop him. And he's going to keep on going. And I think that's the uplifting. That's the positive aspect of it. And he can tell you better about that. It's not going to stop. Alzheimer's not going to stop him at all.
Hell no.
Well, that leads me to kind of a follow-up question for you, Michael. As the director, you were recording this for years, and so many parts, like there were so many stories within the story of this documentary. And again, I recommend anyone who's watching this to check it out, whether it be on Amazon or Fandango or Vudu or Apple TV. I'm not just saying it's great. I don't know if you guys know this, but it's got a perfect rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So it's not just the guy doing the talking right now saying it. It's got a good rating. It's a good show. But my question for you, Michael, is so many stories are in this that could have been a documentary themselves along the way, I feel like. And obviously, Vampiro, you're still doing so many things. Michael, as a storyteller, how do you know when it's time to wrap up this chapter versus, wait, there's more happening, let's keep going?
Yeah, I mean, we could have done we can do a whole documentary on Milli Vanilli. That whole thing, the stories that I heard from what Ian told me, I'm like, oh my God, like he would get arrested if he told them. But anyways, the whole thing is that when we're putting all this stuff together, we have to work with a story editor, who's the editor himself, Danny Palmer, who we worked with, and he was from Vice, and he worked on season 1 of Dark Side of the Ring. And he did a few episodes of that. He did the Bruiser Brody episode, I think, and so he looks at everything. He can see through the weeds, and so we have the core of the story is Ian and Dasha. That's the family. It's the love story between the two. That's the heart of it. That was what we always wanted. And then in between that is the other stuff that we have to sort of work together. And we have to, it's like threading. It's like threading a needle. And that's what he helps put it all together. And I think he's talking to his daughter right now. So that's a big part of it, working with an editor and putting all that stuff together.
How was that process like, as far as was it more collaborating? Did Vampiro have his ideas? Were you just kind of like, from a collaborative effort, like how much of it was him and how much of it was you?
Ian?
I think it was all Michael. I think maybe 2%. I mean, I really think the only thing I said, right, Mike, was like, if I tell you in the dressing room, don't do something, don't do it. I think that was pretty much all
that was it, yeah.
I kind of was like, if I have any input, I'm going to ruin the story. And me as a weird creative dude, I get really mental when somebody gives me direction if I don't ask for it, because I kind of have in my mind my vision. And Michael is we have so many things the same. Because of so many things, Canadians, kids, the music, whatever. And I had the feeling that if I gave anything, I would ruin it for him as a creator. So the best thing was, Michael, I'll fuck this up. You don't ask me, don't show me, don't tell me, don't even fucking tell me we're doing a movie. Just do your thing. And that's kind of how it went, right? Pretty much.
Yeah. It was pretty cool. It was great to have that latitude, being able to just film and follow him. He didn't even see the cut, didn't see the edit, wouldn't look at it until the actual premiere at Fantastic Fest in Austin. So
that's awesome. I think for any creator, I'm sure, Michael, you loved having that freedom to do that. The movie at the very beginning, one of the big takeaways I get is, Vampiro, you're dealing in the director's seat with these massive egos, massive personalities. You even talk about it in the documentary. And I'm sure you've, over the years, had to learn certain ways to manage these big egos and big personalities and all these different things. My question to you is, did you learn anything along the way that did help you sort of work with, I don't want to say manage your daughter, but understand her and work with her and learn to navigate those waters as well? Was there any parallel between those, or did one way of working with people hurt the other, if that makes sense?
Bro, you're asking questions. You're a fucking rock star at this. These are great questions.
Oh, thank you.
At first, it didn't help. But once I understood it and I actually took a course on it, and I became more seasoned at that role, I understood it better because it's a learning process. There isn't a method. It's because there's no job description. It's kind of like you've got to be a psychologist for these guys on a daily basis. There's mood swings, right? So you just kind of got to. What helped me more there than anything else was martial arts, because in Krav Maga and the things I take, our biggest thing is it's either a sucker punch or you've got to de-escalate the situation. So that helped me with these egos and temperaments, right? De-escalate it, deflect it, or sucker punch it without telling them that they're in a fight so they can't get defensive. It's a whole mindset. So with my daughter, being a single dad, when I approached it that way, it was the bully system, because it was very aggressive and confrontational. And the attitude was very, very cold. As soon as I understood that this was a human being trying to communicate with me, but didn't know how, because they looked at me as a father, not as a boss, I needed to change. I needed to grow up and become a man. So wrestling, I was a boy playing a role. So I was very immature as an adult. When I realized that my little girl needed security and needed dad, I needed to change very quickly. So wrestling did help me realize I was doing things the wrong way. Yeah. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I know a big part of the documentary as well was that travel of going from Canada to Mexico to LA to Lucha Underground, kind of between three countries. Now in the quarantine, where obviously everything's kind of shut down, have you been able to recharge your batteries in any way and just kind of, sitting back and not having to do all the travel that you're used to?
I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I love being on the plane. I love it. I love driving. I love being on the road. I love that. And was a life choice, right? I'm a single guy on purpose, not because I'm out looking to do things every single day. It's because I want to be able to be free to just travel. That's what I love the most. Of course, I've recharged my batteries. I've studied. I've got a bunch of new degrees. I'm doing 1,000,001 things. But I miss being on the road more than I can describe. I absolutely love that, driving and having that time to think and grow and daydream and all that. That's my favorite thing to do.
Michael, I have another question for you. Again, as you're filming this documentary, one of the big stories throughout is Vampiro's health. Was there ever a moment as you're recording this and as you're filming this that you as the filmer, obviously you're getting amazing footage and telling an amazing story, but did you ever feel obligated yourself to kind of stop and talk to Vampiro and say, hey, you need to slow down or maybe not do some of these things? Did you ever felt like you needed to step in and say something at any point?
I didn't have to, because I let the subjects that were involved do the talking. Going to see the doctor was a very important moment, because he was hurt, he was injured, and when we were in Thunder Bay, he needed to go see the doctor. So when I spoke to him, I said, "Can we interview you?" He was like, "Yeah, for sure." And he said, "Can I tell him what I think?" I'm like, "Absolutely, this is what I want you to do. This is your chance. He can't leave. We're filming him. Put him on the spot." And that's what he did. So those were those moments when I let other people speak, ask those questions. Same for Dasha. My favorite part is when they had lunch and when they're there talking. And I said to her, you can ask him, like, what is it? What do you want to, like, these are those moments. And we spent they were there for over an hour and a half, 2 hours having lunch. We were tucked away in the corner filming. And they had this amazing conversation. And, those were those moments where I just let them ask those questions. Yeah, I mean, there was totally, I mean, at the times that I still wish there's things I can, they tell them, and I'm always there to have that conversation with you. So I hope that answers that question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love the footage of AAA, anything AAA related. What's next for AAA from your point of view? Because it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Do you have a plan on how big AAA can get sometime in the near future, Vampiro?
Um, I I would like to say about AAA that they need to strengthen their base. They've grown so much too fast, too soon. It's almost like an inverted pyramid. So they're on that point. They need to turn that around, get that base stronger so that they can support it when they have to extend their growth to other places. That's urgent. That's a big thing for them.
Something I kind of want to follow up on the health situation and questions. And Vampiro, this is more for you. Again, lots of health issues throughout the documentary, and I really strongly encourage anyone who's been a fan of yours or a fan of wrestling to check it out. But obviously, there's a lot of wrestlers get hurt, and a lot of fans you'll hear in the crowds when there are crowds chanting for it and cheering for it. And recently, as of recording this, there was an AEW show where a wrestler looked like he hit his head on the concrete, and it was a really uncomfortable situation. My question for you, Vampiro, is do promoters and even do fans need to take a little bit of responsibility for the things we're cheering for and promoting and trying to embrace? Or is that something that we should just say, hey, it's the wrestler's decision? Or our fans, should we take some level of responsibility for having those, holy shit chants or, ECW as it was in the day? Is there some responsibility on us, the fans?
No, that's unfair. Is there a responsibility on the fans that listen to Marilyn Manson and think that that's satanic, as an example? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. A wrestler there's only one guy who takes the decision to take that bump or comes up with that. It's the wrestler who does that. And there might be a creative team, but the wrestler is the one who says, yeah, but what if I jumped off the balcony? You know what I mean? Right. The wrestler who goes through with it. Nobody's in there with a gun. Nobody's got their arm twisted. No one's threatening their pay. No one's, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's the wrestler who does it. And it's because we believe too much in the thrill of the possibility of death. It's an Evel Knievel thing. You can't jump Caesar's Palace on a motorcycle that doesn't have the velocity and it's too heavy to get up the ramp. It ain't gonna happen. You're gonna crash. You're fucked. But you gotta do it because it's in you. And that's the only, and if anybody tries to tell you any different, it's not true. It's in you, and we do it because it's in us. That's it.
If I can follow up on that real quick, again, during that documentary, there was a desire for you to continue, even though you knew you were pushing beyond. Was there kind of a part of you that sort of wanted to crash the proverbial motorcycle? Was there a party that wanted that to happen during the filming of this?
No, I don't know. I don't think so. No, I don't know. Mike? No, huh?
No, I think it was kind of the opposite. I don't think you wanted to do anything that was anything like that. No, there wasn't. That was, I think that's for sure. There were certain events that he was going to that definitely there was Evel Knievel moments that we ended up not filming or just different things because that's not what it would just didn't fit with what we wanted to tell. So there wasn't that sort of thing, and it just unfolded very kind of seamlessly, very organically for us.
Just one last question before we wrap. What are you playing? PS4. I know you're a big PS4 guy. What's your go-to game or games?
Let's see. I'm playing Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I'm learning how to play the Battle Royale thing because I'm going to start playing online professionally. Fucking hate that, but I'm getting good at it. I really like Doom, the second Doom.
Yes.
And I got World War Z. Have you seen that movie with Brad Pitt?
Mhm.
The zombie movie? There was a video game on that. I didn't know. It's just like the movie. That one's dope as fucking hell. So, yeah, that's what I'm playing.
Very cool. Yeah, I just finished Doom 2 myself. That was a fun one. I enjoyed it. But I know you guys got to go. I know you guys got a really, really busy schedule. I just want to take a quick second one more time to thank you guys so much for being on the show. Anything you guys want to promote, any hashtags or Twitter accounts that you want to let people know where to find you?
It's Vampiro on Facebook. It's the only one with a blue check mark. That's where you go to get schooled.
Perfect. And Michael, anywhere they can find you?
I'm on Twitter, and then my company Raven Banner's on Twitter as well. So in between the doc and our horror films and all that sort of stuff, you can check out what we're doing in the independent film scene.
Very cool. Thank you guys one more time for being on with us. Amazing documentary. It's Nail in the Coffin, The Fall and Rise of Vampiro. You can get it on Amazon, Apple TV, Fandango, Vudu, all sorts of places. There's no excuse not to watch it. It is amazing. So thank you guys so much, and best of luck on the next adventure.
Thank you, guys.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Be safe. Thanks for having us on.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hey, it's Christy Olson. If you like this video as much as I did, give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends so they can join in the wrestling chatter too. And don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and follow the show on Twitter at TW Chatter. See you next time.